and welcome to live streaming of Real Talk. Which this is John Rawlings, your host, and I've got a very special guest and friend in the house, uh, Miss Linda Yates. How are you doing? Oh, there. Hold on. There. Double tap. There. There you go.
Can you hear me?
I can. How are you
Okay.
doing?
How are you?
Good.
Good.
The contact lens is still causing me issues. Sorry.
Oh,
Just the old faithful eyeballs not adjusting well. But
uh-huh.
um, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing good.
You know, we had you on. Gosh, it was about a month ago, maybe two.
Yeah,
Um,
time's flying.
it is, and the sound quality wasn't that good, and I apologize for that. But we have had a much better interaction from the start of this to now, so I think it's great.
Yes.
If we could get some feedback from the listeners that are on right now, if it sounds good, please let us know. And if you have any questions for Linda or concerns or thoughts, uh, maybe some kudos and a shout out from being a past commissioner, feel free to post them. I'll post your comments. But talk about your position a little bit. I know you've got a lot of passion, but talk about it in the sense that a lot of our listeners don't know. I learned a lot from you the last time, and take it from that viewpoint that citizens may not know what you actually do.
Well, what I do now is I'm the records manager in the police department. So I oversee the records for the police department. We deal with the public, we deal with the state attorney's office, the clerk of the court. So we deal with other agencies. And I just really enjoy being a liaison for getting records to whomever needs the records, whether it's the public or other agencies and some of our partners. So it's really enjoyable. And coming from being on the commission and being on that end of helping the city and helping citizens. It's definitely been a great experience now being on this side of it in helping to directly communicate with the public and help them out with their records needs as it pertains to the police department.
What's our volume?
What do you mean? What's our volume?
For requests, then I mean your job is just not sitting at a desk and waiting for something to happen. I'm sure there's just a rapid fire of information that has to go out.
Yeah, every day. I mean, it's nonstop. I do have a staff of eight folks with me in the department, so we handle the public records request. A lot of that has to do with the records themselves as far as documents, but body worn camera, audio, so all different aspects of a request that may encompass all of that. And we also work, like I say, with the state attorney's office and getting everything together for criminal prosecution. And like I said, I have about 8 people with me right now that help in doing all of that. So it's never a dull moment. It's nonstop, whether it's reviewing police officers' reports every day that they're out there for calls for service. Our staff has to look all of those records over and make sure everything is the way it needs to be. And then we have to report each of these cases that are criminal cases to the FBI. So it's never ending. There's a lot to do.
Well, it is different than the public records request through like City Hall, correct?
Yes, it is. It is different in the respect of what we deal with. A lot of it is confidential as far as protecting people's information, so security numbers and information, victim information, and things that we can release and can't release during the criminal prosecution to protect the evidence and the integrity of a case. So there's a lot to it, and also the format that the records are in. So we deal with a lot of video, a lot of audio, and transcripts and things like that. So there's a lot to it. It's not just a simple, I want a copy of a ordinance or meeting minutes. If somebody requests a copy of a report for a criminal case, they may want the whole file, and we go through various different records for that, whether it's statements, audio, video, and all of those components.
You've got different aspects of what you just talked about, but how has the newer technology changed things? We now have a drone unit. We've got different aspects of technology coming in, the body cam, as you talked about, but those weren't around 10, 15 years ago like they are today. How has that changed what you're doing?
Well, from a records perspective, so think about it. If somebody's in an auto accident, so they have an accident. It used to be years ago they would request a copy of that report. So, and it was a simple crash report. Nowadays, with the technology, we have various different videos. So it could be body worn camera. You may have one officer on scene, or you may have 4 officers on scene. So you'd have 4 times the amount of video that there would be to produce. And then you also have the phone calls. So there's the audio itself, whether it's a 911 call that was made, or other people that are communicating with the department. So you have various different formats of a record that encompass that one incident. So it's not just as simple as turning over the actual crash report. So that's just one type of incident that you can see there's a lot of different components for it. So time-wise, in order to get a record reviewed and redacted, if you had a 5-page report, it would be fairly simple and wouldn't take very, very much time. But if somebody is requesting the video, and sometimes people even have these dash cam videos now in their own personal vehicles. So you not only have the officer's dash cam, and you have the officer's body camera, but you have that combined with the report and the audio. So something that would have taken maybe 15 minutes to give you a report now could take as much as 6 hours, 10 hours, depending on how many officers are there. And of course, there's a fee for extensive requests. Anything that's going to take over 30 minutes, there is a fee for it. And those folks that are requesting those records would be the ones to pay for that.
And I've got a lot of information scrolling across the bottom just so the listeners know, but kind of go over the schedule that you guys hold and how they would absolutely go about submitting a request online.
Well, sure. They can submit a request. They can go to the citizen services portal that we have. It's northport.prophoenix.com. They can submit a question there, or they can email us. Emailing us is probably the most popular way that people communicate. They'll send a message to records@northportpdfl.gov, and that's the way we get most of our requests in, or they can give us a phone call. So they can also come to the lobby. We have the ability that people can come to the police department lobby, and they can speak with us and request the records that way. So various different ways of doing it. They just need to let us know what it is they're interested in. If they have a case number, that always helps. If they don't, we have folks here that will help research and find them exactly what they're needing. And then we give them a quote depending on what they're asking for.
So what made your passion so strong?
Well, as you know, John, when I was a commissioner, I just love interacting with people, enjoy helping people, and always like to be there to help. So being with the police department, it's been a wonderful experience for me. I still feel very connected with the community and able to answer questions. And of course, there's the aspect of, state law as it pertains to public records. And that's a big part of it. And I enjoy doing that.
What have you learned since taking over?
Since taking over as far as managing the department?
Yeah.
Well, there's every day is different. And that's what I loved about being on the commission too. It's every day was something different. And here in the records department, it is not a boring job. Every case is different. Every person's situation is different. And, we serve with a lot of compassion. We understand people coming to the police department, probably had a bad day, whether it was an accident or some other type of incident report. And the community is just really, really great. I think the police department has a wonderful relationship with our citizenry. So there's a lot of appreciation from citizens coming into the lobby, and it's really great because they'll bring donuts, they'll bring cookies, they'll bring sometimes just for appreciation they come in and they have cards like from the kids that'll write thank you cards. We do a lot with community service and do a lot with the kids at the schools. So it's just wonderful. And I really enjoy that about working at the police department. I kind of, still have that connection with the community as I did when I was a commissioner.
So what relationships have you, I don't want to say built, I want to say adapted to and strengthened in this position you have now?
Well, I get to work with other agencies, and I really enjoy the networking that I have with other records managers across the state of Florida, that we kind of bounce things off of each other. The state law is written in a way where many a times, and most times actually, it's very, very difficult to decipher from it, what are they really talking about? And different agencies, sometimes their legal department has a little different way of interpreting things. So that's been very enjoyable to really kind of, just brainstorm together and, figure out what it is that the statute is alluding to. So sometimes, it's just not clear cut.
That language in the law side of things, I've listened to police officers, I've listened to the drone unit and the detectives and different things as I, even with you and Chief Morales, having just general conversation. The lingo is different.
Yes.
Is it different from organization to organization?
Well, the interpretation, yes, can be different depending on, like I say, the legal department in each agency is the one that is going to make that interpretation to be able to back that up should there be any challenges. So where we get to, well, are certain things releasable or are they not releasable? And Florida, as you know, is very transparent. So it's very, very open to where everything basically is a public record. And doesn't matter what format it's in, whether it's a PDF or a Word document or a video or an audio, everything is public record. And then from there, you have things that are confidential and things that are exempt. So, and body cam, we see that a lot because of that expectation of privacy. So, if you're out in the public and you're on the public sidewalk and there's incidents going on around you, that's out in the public. So then we have to actually try to figure out from there for everybody that is in the videos and what the circumstances are, what can actually be deleted or redacted from that. And those interpretations can be different.
I was going to say, I would think that based on how you described all that, interpretation is a big word.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And that's the challenge, isn't it?
It's one of the biggest challenges is to, to be able to decipher that and figure out, well, did they intend to release that information or was that information an expectation of privacy?
So I don't want to get into like like a bad case, but generally, if I'm listening to you as I know you're interpreting this, even the layman going into a situation, it's my interpretation too, and that can be a struggle, right?
Absolutely. Yep, you're 100% right. There's things that in conversation with police officers that you're talking to about particular incidents, sometimes people want to remain anonymous, and unfortunately, in certain circumstances, there is no ability to do that if you're involved in an investigative situation.
That's got to be a tough job, because redacting, we hear that a lot in the federal government. When they do things, they're redacting everything, and so when you get a page, it's half blacked out, and if you're lucky, it's half
Yeah,
blacked.
yeah.
Is that about the same way it works with you? Is that the same style system that you guys use?
Yeah, I mean, we start with everything basically is an open book, and then from there you have to look at the situation. You look at the person, and depending upon certain professions, their addresses may be protected. If you have a victim of crime, depending upon the nature of that crime, their whole identity might be protected, or maybe just their address is protected. So it's knowing those different circumstances surrounding that, video surveillance, and things like that, where cameras are on your home. Does anybody have a right to know that? And so it's protecting the things that, like I say, that if you put yourself on one side versus the other side, you sometimes can have a better understanding of why things are redacted and why things are not redacted. So
Has this given you a different perspective from when you were a commissioner, when you sat on the dais and you would talk to the law enforcement from the dais or through projects? Does this give you a different perspective than you had before?
Well, being in the police department now and working here, I definitely have an inside day-to-day idea of what goes on. But, I've always had an appreciation for the professionals in public safety, and knowing the difficulty that they have, and just always appreciated their expertise in what they were doing. So always had that level of confidence in
Right.
them. So it's been great to now be a part of it, and be able to help others understand. Sometimes people have certain expectations, and having conversation with them, they can come to a better understanding, as to why we have to black something out, or why, if they come to the lobby, they can't have that record necessarily right at the moment. And that's where it is a little bit different, maybe, like you were asking about over at City Hall. If you want a copy of an ordinance or something, that's already public information that was exposed at a public meeting, and so you print it off and you give it to somebody, which is a lot different than somebody coming to us and wanting a criminal investigation. It depends on the status of that case, and is the investigation over, and what I can give you today may be different than what's available once that case is prosecuted. So that all plays into what you can have and what you can. And I think I mentioned this before when we spoke about body camera. If a lot of people don't realize this, but if you have an hour's worth of body cam, in order for our staff to view that, and then redact from it using the various different tools and techniques that we have to black out that protected information, it'll take 3 hours. That's the estimate. So for every hour of video, it will take 3 hours to produce that document for somebody. So if you have 4 officers, you can see, 4 times 3, that's a 12-hour request just for the video.
And you had mentioned the charge that goes
Yes.
along with that. That first half hour is free. Is that the same case in the video cam?
Yeah, sure. Any type of request, it doesn't matter whether you're getting audio, video, or documents. If it could be done within 30 minutes, then you're not having to pay for that. If it goes beyond the 30 minutes, then that's considered an extensive time. And rather than, the entirety of the population paying for that, it's up to the individual that's wanting or requesting to see something in that detail that they would pay for it individually. So that's kind of the concept.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you sat on the commission and before, when you were just your average everyday citizen, guys, can you remember that day?
Yes, it was a while ago. I can't.
Yeah. I was going to say you jumped from one fire to the next fire, so to speak, but this is probably a little calmer than being a commissioner.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, it depends on who you're dealing with, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you've been through a lot in your career and in your transition, but how have you adapted? How have you personally adapted to make this job better?
I've always been very, very customer orientated. So that always is the first thing is getting the person and helping the person to fulfill the needs that they're looking for. And that can come by way of, you take the request and you give them the records, or you're able to have a conversation with them so that they can better understand the reason maybe why they're not able to get that record. So, that to me is very important. It's all about customer service, and it's about the public having trust. When I was on the commission, it was about the public having trust in their elected officials and their commissioners, that they were there for the benefit of the public. And it's the same thing with public safety. You want the public to be feel connected to the police department. We're here to serve the public. So, working toward that relationship, and the police department as a whole is there to serve the citizens. And like I said, our police department is very, very connected to our community. There's so many programs, there's so much that is done, and I see that actually coming back to the police department. So I see the community that is very, very supportive of their police department and the men and women that serve, whether they're sworn officers or the civilian citizens that are very much a big part of the police department as well. You have you have records. Yeah, you have property and evidence records. You have the crime scene folks. So most of those are non-sworn civilians that really have dedicated themselves to, again, help the public.
That I heard you use two words now, and I dare say these two words out loud because you're gonna have a great answer for it. But transparency and trust.
Yes.
When you're dealing with public records requests, or as a commissioner, those kind of group together with you, that grouping can look different when you're redacting.
Yes.
And how do you deal with that explanation to people when they are challenging transparency, but there's redaction?
Yeah, and so if you put yourself in the situation of, let's say you were a victim of a crime, if you understand the reason that things are blacked out and for the protection of that victim, if you yourself were a victim, you would appreciate that. You would appreciate that if you elected to have your address and information protected, that way you could not be harassed or contacted, and you have lawyers out there that look for opportunities to have clients and so on. So at least your information is protected, where you wouldn't be overwhelmed with that influx of outsiders kind of invading your privacy, so to say. So if you're on the other side of that you just want to see what happened and you want all of the nitty gritty details and everything, and you get upset because you see all of the blacked out areas. Again, it's kind of explaining it to where if you were on the other side of that, you would appreciate people not necessarily being able to track you down.
The trust factor that comes within that whole conversation, that's got to be a crafty handling too, because transparency and trust, let's face it, in today's world, those two words are used sometimes when they shouldn't be, because you're challenging something that daggone well, and it doesn't matter if it's local or federal. They all use it as a battle axe, I think. Mm-hmm. With what you do, you're probably not the target. Is that the case sometimes?
Well, people can get very upset with situations, and if they're not able to get what they're looking for, they certainly can take it out on the folks here at the records department or myself in feeling that they're being denied what they're wanting. So sometimes people can get very, very irate until you kind of calm them down. And certainly they can get a sense of transparency by the sincerity that people are serving the public with. So you can kind of sense that. And also the consistency of things, right? So if you call me up and you're wanting a particular record and I explain to you that, it's still under investigation, I can only give you limited information, then the next person that's asking for the same thing, that's just a member of the public is being told the same thing. So it's that consistency in delivering the response to the public, that it is the same, and that builds up the trust and the transparency over regardless of the situation.
It's interesting because you watch TV, you watch different aspects of what our government is doing. Then you watch local, and we see what local's doing, and then you watch some of the new shows that are out that give a different interpretation. Do you find yourself challenged by those conversations too?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to watch. And that's where, like I said before, even within the state of Florida, that you can go from one agency to another agency and their interpretation is maybe a little slightly different. And so things are handled a little bit differently. I would say for the most part, with the common things, you'll find the same from agency to agency. It's just some of the trickier stuff that, where it's not real clear that there may be some differences.
What are your top things that you would tell the citizens? I don't know if you have a top 5 on your list of things about what they should do if they're trying to find information, or how they should document, maybe when because documentation is like your thing. But it's kind of like the backside of what we're talking about. So but it's kind of not. If you were teaching how to document accident, the scene of an accident, or if you saw somebody getting harmed, a lot of people have got their phones out, they're doing things like that. But
yeah,
there's some really important things that can be seen, and maybe not even realized at the moment, but later on it kind of comes around. But
yeah,
how would you tell people to? I always say this because we look down so much. I talk about us being downlookers because we're always looking at our phone.
Yeah,
and we're not paying attention to what's happening in front of our face anymore.
Yeah,
and when that happens, everybody looks around going, "I hope somebody saw that." Well,
yeah. Well, and the interesting thing too is that we could be looking at the same thing, but you process it differently maybe than I do. So when you give your take of what happened and I give my take of what happened, we were both there. Now it doesn't mean that your version is made up or that mine is made up. We're human beings, and there's certain things that you're going to be perceptive with versus maybe what stands out to me. So I find that very, very interesting that, people are watching, like I said, the same thing at the same time, and yet the takeaway could be a little bit different. And I think respecting that is really, really important. Because like I say, it doesn't mean that one person is lying and the other person is telling the truth, but we're human beings, and that's just natural. That is going to happen, and that's really the important part about investigators. And when they get into investigating a crime, is to account for that variance depending upon who they're talking to be able to put that picture together. That's probably the most difficult part. And I think, that is one of the things that we just have an outstanding police department with a lot of well-trained individuals that are able to do that, and very successful, at the end of the day with prosecutions.
Keeping our city safe is law enforcement overall.
Yes.
There is some responsibility within the citizenry that goes along with that, along with leadership throughout. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about the commission or public works or parks and rec. They're all in communication with law enforcement to try to make sure everything is running smooth. And if there's an incident, they're all over it to try to adapt. Have you found that that's a different perspective than when you sat on the dais?
Yeah, I would say that the public is very much engaged, and even more than ever before, because of cell phones, because of people are just very aware of their surroundings, and that's really one of the messages that our police department has gotten out there, and worked really hard at building that relationship with the community, and it is so important. So we have very low crime rates compared to other areas, and I think the citizenry is a big part of that, because they're the eyes and ears out there, and they do help in many circumstances. So public safety and the effects that we're able to have with having such a safe community, it's teamwork, and it's really taking the police department and the citizenry together, working toward that.
Now we got our first like, believe it or not. We've had a lot of people. I've watched it flow in and out, but Zio's 1221 Pizzeria Restaurant.
Awesome.
That seems to be a favorite of the police department, and probably the fire department too, if I ask Chief Titus. But
Yes.
they're huge supporters of our community, and I'm glad to give them a shout out. Along with the scrolling at the bottom, we've got 3 sponsors that have stayed steady with us now for about 2 years, and
Oh, that's awesome.
really
Yeah.
appreciate what they're doing and holding their ground. But the funny thing, the communications back to the citizens, the interaction that is now happening, you in your new role, and it's I guess it's not new because you've been there how many years now?
Right. I've been with the police department for 7 years now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
it's been 7 years, and managing the department for 3.
Yeah, well, it's kind of crazy because it feels like you were just on the commission last year. It wasn't 7 years
I
ago.
know, and I think about it, and it's like, wow, I can't believe my first election was 15 years ago. So it's crazy, and yet it feels like yesterday.
Yeah, and things have changed a lot since you left over 7 years. I know that we've done some really cool things in the police department. We've added some people, we've lost some people, but retention seems to be a good thing. How is the retention within your department?
It is really good. The retention is great. I think we have one person that's been here for about 10 years now.
Wow.
And I think the thing with the records department is that it's a great opportunity. People get involved and they get into the police department, and then an opening comes up, maybe in crime scene, analysis, and they'll take that opportunity and go move through the department. So retention is very good, but I do see that over time people build up their experience with it, and we've had an officer that just in my time here that started in records and ended up on the road. And it's just great to see someone's career evolve like that. And it's great because I tease them all the time. It's like, okay, so you were in records, so you know better than that to get your paperwork in on time and complete. So it's great.
There's a difference between retention and promotion.
Yeah.
Or transition. Because if you're staying within the city, you're staying within, and a lot of people may or may not stay within the city as far as the police side of things, but they stay in the city somewhere else. That's still I hope you're not discounting that as a retention problem. I don't think you are.
No, that's what I say. I think, retention is great. And, it's evolving. Like I said, people evolve through their career, and and like I said, it's great. I like to tease the officer that came from records, and you kind of, it's like, oh great, and now they can help their fellow officers as far as paperwork goes. So that's a big part of what we do that maybe the public is not fully aware of, that the records department and in the police department doesn't just handle public records requests. So we do a lot with the officers and in making sure that their daily paperwork, if there's an incident that happens, there's so many components to make that official record. So, the paperwork has to be filled out. You need to have statements. You need to have, some exemption forms if there's a victim. And then you need to package everything together. And if it's criminal, you need to get that to the state attorney's office. So we have folks in here that primarily that's what they do all day long. So it's a big component of our department that, like I say, the general public doesn't necessarily realize. They kind of just connect with the fact of doing records requests. And that's really only a portion, a small portion of what we do.
It's challenging at times even to have this conversation, because I don't know how in depth to go with certain things. But with the criminal side of record keeping, you talked about the officers' documentation. How do you fix that? If you see something, is that something that you guys govern and then go back and say, hey, you need to correct this?
Yeah, that's, we're proofreaders basically, and we are the quality control. So maybe there's a misspelling of somebody's name that could really be, believe it or not, there's several people with the same name. So you've got to make sure that you have the right individual in that report, and didn't mistakenly put somebody else with a different birthday. So we are the checks and balances to make sure that everything is correct. When it comes to the state statute, there's different reporting that we have to do for the FBI. So, depending on how many frauds you have, how many thefts you have, and different types of crime. So all of that is reported, and we actually have to make sure that everything is documented so that it is reporting properly. You don't want to have over reporting or under reporting of particular types of crime. And every year the FBI puts out their statistics on crimes throughout different communities and throughout the country. So that is what we do. And so if we're reading reports and the name is wrong, or the statute doesn't match with the type of crime, we get back with the officers and they need to fix their reports. So that is what we do. And it is very, very time consuming.
And I want to give you an opportunity to clarify, because I think people can misinterpret. Fix, that word, a lot of people see that word as, oh, they didn't get it right, so now they're going to get me with the fix. Clarify that word, because I don't want that out there as a word that you may not like now that you've heard me explain it.
Right. Yeah. So by the word fix, correction, again, if somebody's name is in that report and it is not the individual that was involved in that, they would have to make that correction for that. So you're right. Correction is probably a better word than hearing fix.
Right.
But whatever happened, but it needs to be reported accurately. And
well,
so that's what we make sure is happening.
I'm not trying to pick on you, because
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Because people misinterpret words.
Sure.
Real quick. And it seems like today versus 10 years ago, people are more apt. Well, they're all over Facebook. So the minute that you say one word, that one word turns into a 10-week post that you got to correct. And
right.
And that's just the way social media is today.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people that hide behind the keyboard and do certain things. And it doesn't matter whether, like I said, it doesn't matter whether it's local, state, or federal. It's all happening real time. Are those challenges for you guys in the police? Because I know the police department is extremely focused on social media and that engagement to the community. And there's a lot of pride that goes into that. And I think it echoes throughout the department. And they're kind of in the spotlight because the police department is on the street. They're always doing something, whether we like them behind us or not. Something is always a challenge for someone in our community or outside of our community. But all that being said, you've got that social media mirror that now is prevalent on just about everything. I'm kind of impressed, because you're quiet on social media. Not you personally, but your department.
Well, actually, I think our department has come a long way with getting on Facebook and getting things out there, and
Instagram
and so on. And I think we just have a really good relationship with our community. So it's really good, and we get a lot of positive feedback. We're usually ahead of things. Rather than coming from behind. So it's been a real good experience.
So a fun thing now, do you ever get to talk to the commissioners?
Yes. I mean, the folks that I serve with, pretty much they've turned out, because of the time period that it has been. But I know of, people that are serving on the commission, and so I might see them out in the public. It's great. I think, the community is again, very much more engaged than what they have been in the past. And I think we just have an awesome city.
Flashback to 7 years ago. let's go. Let's go 8. Let's have some fun. 8 years ago, you're sitting on the commission. What's different visually to you now if you were to be commissioner today?
Oh, that's I don't know. That's kind of a tough question. We've built up obviously quite a bit in the last 7 years.
Yeah, we have.
So I think we're still scrambling and to get as much commercial as we need to get. So that's something that's never ending, to try and get that commercial tax base into the community. So that's something that would still be, definitely a goal to strive for.
Well, I think everybody that's serving wants it. Um, I think they are looking at it. All of them are looking at it. Maybe some of them are the same way, but others are a little different. But the need, gosh,
Right.
if you didn't want to step on somebody's toes, it's tough in our community because no matter where we put commercial, it seems like it's going to back up to somebody's backyard.
Yeah, that's the tough part about, being a pre-platted community, for sure. It's very difficult. It's gonna be in somebody's backyard for sure.
Yeah, the problem didn't change. I guess that's what I'm saying to you is the problem didn't change since you served, and it's not invented by the people who are serving.
Right.
You guys did what you could to move that piece along. And it's not an easy piece. We can
Yeah.
see that from the side of Sarasota Memorial. We could see that with the hospitals that are going up in Wellham Park and the one here local, even
Right. Right.
the mental health hospital. All those are challenges, and I find it interesting to listen to you because the reality is everybody who thinks that these problems happen because the current commission, it kind of isn't true. It's the history that they're not confronting. You've been here. How many years you lived in Northport?
20.
Yeah, so we're not too far apart on that.
Yeah.
And what I find ironic is that we were talking. Sorry, it was supposed to be silence. And we were talking about this stuff years ago, if not decades ago,
Right.
and finding that same issue. And I look at our police department now. I look at it back then. It's gone through transitions. I look at our fire department. It's gone through transitions. I look at our recycling program and Frank Lama and what he's done over there, and Public Works and how great they are, and the leadership we have in that area. We have a lot of great leaders, and what you're doing by educating the public and keeping everything, you're just part of that management team. Do you find that support is strong within what your job is? Did I lose you?
The audio cut out a little.
So are you hearing me now?
Yes, I heard that.
All right. So your past with everything that happened before, that and the leadership that we have now in the city. Do you find that leadership, because you're part of that with the management that you are? Do you find that support very solid within what you do?
Yeah, I think that the leadership or administration of the city is very supportive in moving the community in the direction that we need to go. We've had our challenges, just like other areas. Being pre-platted is the most. I mean, that kind of really dictated the limitations that we were going to have. So So that right there constrained this community from developing in the way other communities were able to develop. And I think, from the beginning of time, commission after commission and administrations working together has brought us to what we've been able to do and where we are today. The Welland Park area, that was 9,000 acres that was annexed into the city, and look at what it's become. Look at what it's developed into. It's a very important part of the community, and is helping to spread and bring things to other areas of the community. Toledo Blade area, look at that, how that's developed over time. So we've had the challenges of whether it's hurricane and other infrastructure issues that we've had to overcome, and I think administrations and commissions over the years have really overcome many of those things. Maybe not as far as what we'd want to be, but when you think about the challenges that we have had, I think we've come pretty far. I really do.
That it's great insight when you can look back through the time that you served, and the time that I've lived here. We're almost at 25 years of living in this great community, and our surrounding neighbors, as they've blossomed too. We're not talking about a city that is blossoming by itself. We're talking about two counties that seem to be on fire with build out and also different challenges. We're our police department. I would match them against anybody. And I don't know that I would have said that 15 years ago. I don't know that I had enough insight because of what I'm doing now with you guys with the interviews. I don't see how there's improvement. I know there is, and I know that there's challenges for you guys to fix things and get things corrected, but we don't have the scandal that that a lot of people or a lot of places have. I've traveled with and see my granddaughters up in Muncie, Indiana, and I talk to their police department and their fire department when I'm up there, and I really just engaged with the fire department a couple weeks ago, and they showed up to play pickleball, and it changed the whole attitude of that park when and I actually took pictures and sent it back to Chief Titus, and he's like, great rig. He loved the truck. But I know that we do that same thing. We may not get out and play pickleball with the police department, but we do a lot to give back to the community. And that's a huge aspect of the connection, whether it still be at the high schools or the elementary schools. We're still there, even though there's resource officers supplied by Sarasota school district. So how do you perceive all these changes that have happened? Because when you were commissioner, we didn't have those.
I mean, over the last 10 years, I think the Northport Police Department has really, really just blossomed, and as far as being so community centric, I don't, if I look back on it prior to that, I really don't believe that there was that much of a presence as there is today. It's really great to see that, and to me it's amazing, and it's not just in person. Like I say, it's through Facebook and Instagram, and as well as the in-person connections. We have the Shop with the Cop program. We have so many different great community programs.
We do, and there's a lot to be proud of.
And you're familiar with like this. Yeah.
You asked me if I was familiar. You cut out just a little bit.
Oh, you're familiar with the various different programs that we do have,
Oh,
like Santa
yes.
Surprise and the things that we do, um, during the holidays, and just try and be out there for the families. So we have a community policing division that is out there in the community offering help to some folks that just haven't had luck with a lot of things, and so they're there being very supportive and trying to help them with resources that they may need. So we're just out there in lots of
Yep.
different ways.
Well, I'm going to give a shout out to Chief Garrison because first off, I think he's amazing. And if you haven't had a chance to meet Chief Garrison, please take any
Yes.
opportunity you have to talk to him. He is full a wealth of information, very supportive, and really leading the police department. Down a path that it's exciting to watch. So I want to thank
Yes.
you for being part of this show and getting the information out. I apologize for the technical difficulty last time, but I feel like this was even better. And I was looking forward to talking with you again anyway, but I kind of miss our conversations.
Yeah.
So
Always good to talk with you, John.
I appreciate everything.
Appreciate you too, and anytime, just let me know. Always happy to chat with you and get information out.
Fantastic. This is John Rawlings with Real Talk saying thanks very much for listening in. Please like and share this page. The more information you can get out to your fellow neighbor, the better off we are. And throw it out on some Facebook pages. It's going to help get the information out. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you, John. Take care.
Bye-bye.